Hollywood Hoop Dreams aren't only made from magic, they also come in the form of original podcasts from the Hoop Ball Network.
So if you're the Lakers zooming out, are you tempted to bring back DeMarcus Cousins in the playoffs? And do you disrupt the dynamic at that point if he's healthy enough to play?
Join Ethan, JC, and the thriving Lakers community around the world to talk about all things Lakers.
The Lakers this season has come to expect of this team is consistent winning. That is something we have not been able to say since I've seen Andrew Bynum in a Lakers uniform.
The show is available everywhere pods are found, and you can follow the show on Twitter at HoopBallLakers.
The following is a Hoop Ball presentation.
Hello, and welcome to the Hoop Ball DFS Today podcast. I am your host, Mike Patro, joined by my good buddy Aaron Asmus to break down this Thursday, September 17th card. We had some eventful basketball, to say the least, that just took place with the overtime game in the opening series for Miami-Boston. And then we got to see the Clippers go home, Aaron. So let me get your thoughts on that. I want to, touch on that before we even think about talking about this slate. All the news, or actually the verbal abuse getting hurled at them on Twitter land.
Right.
Most of it coming from Blazers players. Did you happen to check that out?
Yeah. I think it's one of those things you kind of look at, then you think about, Oklahoma City, they got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They got, I think 7 first-round picks, future first-round picks, just to get only eliminated one round sooner than the Houston Rockets and the Clippers. So I think they're probably feeling pretty good about themselves. And I mean, if you're a Clipper fan or a Rockets fan, you're just I think you're kind of holding your head a little bit, because this is kind of like, well, we're kind of tapped out on assets, and there was all these chemistry problems that were coming out from the players in the post game. I'd be really concerned going forward, because these two teams kind of had a 2-3 year window here, and kind of seems like both teams just choked, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, the Rockets, I don't want to say we're almost, used to it, from them. I don't think a lot of people had them, making the Western Conference Finals, but it was pretty much penciled in all over the place, Lakers versus Clippers. And so the Clippers had far greater expectations, and to be up 3-1, and to choke and let them come back. And then the abysmal performance from, I'm not even going to put it all on Paul George. Kawhi Leonard had a pretty rough game 7 as well. Neither one of them can even score a point in the fourth quarter. That's, it's not a great look. Paul George said it was chemistry. He's in it for the long haul. I feel like we've heard that from Paul George before, though. So
I think he said that year 1 in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, exactly. He said he was going to stick around. They were going to build. Yeah, sure. No, but I think it's more likely that he'll stick around with the Clippers. But yeah, man, I was loving Twitterland, just seeing Dave and CJ just chirping at these guys and saying their business, because I think it was the Clippers that had something to say when the Blazers were on their way out. So they're all celebrating in Cancun. Nonetheless, we have a new slate. We have a new series to talk about. Pretty exciting stuff over here. So we're going to jump right into it. But quick shout out to our presenting sponsors. If you haven't already checked out MyBookie, guys, I honestly don't know what you are doing. Go check out MyBookie. Use that promo code HoopBall, HOOPBALL, and you will get a nice little deposit match. We'll match up to 100%. So I say nice and little, but it's a pretty big one. So obviously, guys, take advantage of it. They're always doing these free contests, free money, pretty much handing out some of these crazy bets they got going on over there. But check them out, Hoopball, HOOPBALL. And there's something else I want to talk about, guys, and it is a new presenting sponsor, something I'm finding a little bit more about, but it is absolutely awesome. It is called ExpressVPN. So, I mean, I'm sure you guys all know VPN protects your privacy and security online, right? But what I didn't know this, and I didn't know this until recently, it's taken my TV game watching to the next level, because you can use VPN to unlock movies and shows that are only available in other countries. So this is awesome, especially for all of our listeners. We have a lot of listeners all around the world. So over the weekend, I used ExpressVPN. And I binged Doctor Who on the UK Netflix. So it was simple. I just fired it up at ExpressVPN app. I changed my location to UK. I refreshed Netflix, and that was it. See, ExpressVPN hides your IP address and lets you control where you want sites to think you are located, where you're located. You can choose almost 100 different countries. So just think about it. All the Netflix libraries you can go through. Plenty. If you love anime, you can switch it to Japanese Netflix and just be spirited away. But it's not just Netflix. ExpressVPN works with any streaming service: Hulu, BBC, iPlayer, YouTube, you name it. There are hundreds of VPNs out there, but the reason I use ExpressVPN is to watch shows, and it's ridiculously fast. So check them out, guys. No buffering. I'm pretty pumped up about this one. This is one that I was already signed up for and signed on with far before they became a presenting sponsor for us. So that was a mouthful, but I just wanted to get it out there because I'm sure, I don't know if you knew about it, Aaron. There is so many different Netflix out there that you need to take advantage of. So I'm expecting you to check it out. Let's jump into this,
Sounds
man.
Good.
We have Miami versus Boston. So this is, we have Miami up 1-0. Awesome game, remembered by that Bam Adebayo block on Jason Tatum, game sealing. We have, some Hall of Famers. I think it was Magic Johnson said it was the best defensive play he's ever seen in playoffs. So this game's coming in with a 208.5 game total. Boston's being favored by 2.5 points. Why don't we start with this Miami team though? And we'll start with the backcourt. Goran Dragic is just turning back the clock. He's looking amazing. He's been, shout out to Dan Brespis, sipping some magic potion, looking 5 years younger. So a little bit of a price tag increase, $7,400. I'm thinking I'm still stomaching that, and I'm willing to pay it. But I want to get your opinion on it.
Yeah, I think probably my only trepidation with Dragic is, I think the direct comparison is with Kemba at 8,200 on the Showdown slate. He's 7,800. But I think they're more or less the same play. So kind of going through this series, I think kind of how I want to handle them is just kind of let people use recency bias. If Dragic has a really great game, they're most likely going to go to him. If Kemba has a bad game, they'll fade him. But both of these guys are, they're shooters. They're kind of score first point guards, more secondary playmakers. They're not really box or steals guys. They'll get in a little bit on rebounds, but not overall. I think they're kind of they have a really similar skill set and kind of similar role within these two teams as, they're not quite the alpha, but, they're still just a significant portion of the offense. I think one thing that's a little concerning, Dragic probably has a lower minutes floor than Kemba does. I think they'd like to keep him probably around that 34 to 35 minute range, which, I think, we've seen Kemba time and time again. He's probably going to be around that 38 to 42. But you can't argue it. You can't argue his usage in the playoffs. He's been shooting excellent. And he's basically their second scorer behind Jimmy, and sometimes Jimmy's a little more passive. So he's one of the few options that I'm strongly considering for my captain core.
See, and I should have actually prefaced this. So I know you're looking at the Showdown slate. I was actually looking at the Thursday-Friday slate that they have going on DK. I don't know if you had a chance to check that out. Yeah, they actually started combining the slates, which, things could get a little risky. They do the late swap, so you do have time to change anything that you need to in the following day. So the combination slate is the Thursday and the Friday slate put into one. Okay. We don't need to go too in depth. I like actually that you're talking about the Showdown slate. So I think for our listeners, it would be great if you just kept breaking it down as the Showdown slate, and then I'll touch on the guys I'm looking at mostly in this 2-day slate. Sure. It'll probably be a lot of the same guys, but they'll get both angles in both kind of scenarios, right. and then we could kind of cruise through that Denver LA slate later on, just because this is what it's going to become with the podcast now. It's going to be talking about, everybody that's going to be talking about the same games pretty much. There's no chasing them anymore. But I'm with you. If you're looking in that captain spot kind of issue, I think Kemba makes more sense for the Showdown slate. Just simply, I think he'll be lower owned. I haven't been playing Kemba throughout pretty much this entire bubble. Early on, I had a couple of shares. He had a couple of decent games, and fading him has been good for me. So I'm probably going to continue to do that on the 2-game slate. I prefer Dragic over him in that one, but I'm with you on the Showdown slate. Definitely a better play for Dragic, especially in GPPs for me.
Yeah, agreed. But just kind of taking a quick look, it's kind of the same principle I was talking about. Kemba is 7,500, Dragic is 7,400. So I think you can apply that same thing where, if Dragic had the great game, I'm guessing he's probably going to be higher owned than Kemba. So if you're looking for, basically the same type of player, a guy who probably has a higher minutes floor than Dragic does. And, Kemba, his scoring is just related to how well he's shooting, and he just hasn't had the shot going in the playoffs. That's a good way to get an edge in tournaments, I think.
I'm still screaming that his knee, he's dealing with knee sore. Something's not right with him. He's been very, very passive as well. I mean, like the shot attempts have been down pretty much for the past few games. The first opening game of the series, he took 19. But you're looking at these minute totals, and playing 44 minutes against Toronto in that game 7 only took 16 shot attempts. 52 of the game prior only took 11. 36, 15. So the shot attempt, he's been deferring, is what I'm seeing. I don't know if it's injury related, but he's been struggling with his 3-point shot mightily. It's contrarian. It's Kemba Walker. We know he can put it together. I just prefer like these ancillary pieces. I'm saying ancillary, but these other pieces, they're not ancillary. We talk about Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. So those are the two guys I'm pretty much preferring. But not to get away from this. So let's continue with Miami though. Jimmy Butler, 8,400. Well worth this price tag. It's definitely, where he should be priced over the past few games, 85 and then 86. So it's actually a little bit of a decrease. The shot attempts have been down for Jimmy. And this is a tough defensive assignment. They do have plenty of bodies that they could throw at him. But with Jimmy Butler, I gotta know, what this guy can actually do on any given night. He could just take over. So 8,400, shooting guard, small forward eligible. Do you see him? We'll start with the Showdown. Do you see him making your Showdown?
I think so. Just kind of playing with a couple different builds. He wasn't necessarily creeping into my captain's slot as much, but you just can't argue his role. Kind of what I really like about this Showdown slate is there's probably five to seven guys who can realistically be the highest scoring player on any given day, which is kind of unique from what you've been used to. I think last week or the week before we talked about the Houston Rockets LA series, and it's like, okay, you knew it was going to be LeBron, it was going to be Davis, it was going to be Harden, or it was going to be Russ. Here we have a bunch of guys with just a really wide range of price outcomes where they can just easily be the best, highest scoring player on the slate. So I think the way I want to approach this in Showdown is really kind of diversify my captain slot. And especially because we're not paying those, just exorbitant prices, for Anthony Davis or LeBron James, we're able to fit more of these guys a lot easier into our lineups. I'm going to be playing. I think I'm going to be playing a lot of tournaments, for this Miami Boston Showdown slate, because I think there's definitely an edge in kind of spreading your risk, or spreading your captain out, and whereas kind of the LA series, it was just play Rondo basically in the captain, and then diversify from there.
I like your take, man. I think that's a smart way to do it, and if you end up with Jimmy Butler in there, so be it. I'm not going to knock you for playing Jimmy. 8,400. I think when I'm looking at this 2-game slate, I'm not landing on him all that much now, but I'm not just going to say I'm not getting any shares of Jimmy Butler. I'll find some ways to get him in there in a few lineups. Probably in the lineups where I'm not playing Dragic. It's just I'm looking for that guy, who's going to be the leading scorer on this team. It's most likely going to be one of those two guys. And when it comes down to Jimmy Butler for me, very similar price tag to his counterpart Bam Adebayo on this slate, and I think I prefer Bam just slightly more than him. at like a point per dollar standpoint. I love targeting bigs going against Boston, and with the great game that he had, I think he's fully capable of a much better game than that one that we just saw. So I think he has a little bit more in the tank, just rebounding wise and rebounding upside. So I will have shares of Jimmy, but I'll probably be a little bit underweight compared to the field. And then we'll talk about some of these other guys. Tyler Hero, Crowder. Both these guys very similar price tag. $6K for Jay Crowder, $5,800 for Tyler Hero. Both had excellent games in that last one. Obviously, I think the overtime helped everybody out just a little bit, but Hero almost dropping a triple double is going to be on a lot of people's radars. And at $5,800, I could see him definitely drawing some ownership. Are you going to fade him, or do you see yourself having some shares?
No, I'm on 5,800. For the 2 game, I assume he's probably going to be close to a must play, just because we don't have pretty much value on these 2 game slates ever, and 5,800 is essentially a value these days. But on the Showdown slate, him and Marcus Smart have been 2 guys I've been really looking at for the captain slot that kind of just really lets me do whatever I want with the rest, and fit in the Jaylen Brown, the Jimmy Butler, the Bam, Kemba, those guys. I think he's more or less the starter at this point, or just kind of the super sixth man. And he closes for them now. He's had 2 monster games back to back. I think that those 9 assists kind of really speak to how much they trust him with the ball. And if he's going to be a playmaker, and we know his shot can get going, I think he's just a tremendous source of value. I don't think his role is all of a sudden going to go down again to mid-20s or something like that. Just in a regulation game, I think you're pretty safe with 32, 33 minutes at a minimum.
Yeah, no, I was hoping you'd be on the same train as me. I'm a Tyler Hero truther. I love this kid. I've been following him since he was in high school, man. This kid can ball, and he is no stranger from being in the spotlight and having the ball in his hands for that. He's not afraid to take the shot. He can make it and create his own shot. And just his ability, like you said, it speaks volumes to how much this front office and coaching staff trust this kid, where they're letting him, run wild. And during his rookie season on this kind of stage and platform, and he does not shy away from the moment. 5,800 is a fantastic price for him. I'm not going to say I'm going to lock him in, just because I do think there is some merit in getting away from him, just because I do think the ownership will be high. But my single lineups, my cash games, they will both have him. My single entry, that is, they'll both have Tyler Hero in it. And if you're gonna go with Jay Crowder, I won't blame you there. 6K, he's been pretty much smacking value on that for the past 3, 4, 5 games. Just very consistent. And at 6K, you can easily get some shares of Jay Crowder and feel comfortable about it. Tournaments, still some I guess some meat on the bone in that one, but a little less interest in tournaments. Feels like a very safe cash option right now.
Agreed. I think it just says a lot about his talent, and when a veteran coach like Spo and Pat Riley in the front office, that they're trusting this kid with basically 30 minutes, and he's 20 years old, his rookie season. I just don't see any way they just yank his role away from him at this point. I think he's kind of their super six man.
They need this kid right now. I mean, he's pretty much going to be outside of the 3 main guys, Bam, Dragic, and Butler. He's the 4th guy. He's the guy that's going to be touching the ball the most. And we've essentially seen Duncan Robinson almost start to get phased out. While Duncan Robinson is a 3-point specialist, it can knock down shots from pretty much anywhere on the floor. We all know this. They have this young kid, Tyler Hero, that's not too bad at shooting the 3 ball as well. And over the past 3 games, 40%, 43%, and 50% from 3-point land. So, you could get this kid out there that can knock down a 3 at almost an elite clip. And he's still, like you said, an excellent playmaker. And, surprisingly, he's been getting chippy. At least 8 rebounds in 3 of the last 4 games. It's just showing that this kid can get it done in so many different ways. And if the shot's falling, it's just upside. It's just bonus. But the playmaking ability, the way that he finds his way around the rim, not afraid to attack the basket either. I don't know if you've seen that sweet Euro step he had. But excellent play either way. And anybody else on this team that you want to talk about? You ready to shift gears over to Boston?
Yeah, we touched on Jay Crowder a bit. I think Duncan Robinson is just always, he needs to be in your tournament pool. You know, it's a scary, scary low floor. But if you kind of look at that Game 6 against Miami, you know, if he's nailing his 3-ball, you know, he's going to stay on the floor. You know, that's kind of the way they treat him. If he's got it going, he's going to get you know, probably low 30s in minutes, and there's always just a real upside there. You know, he doesn't do much other than shoot, obviously, but for, you know, the cheaper tag, I probably wouldn't captain him. I don't think you probably don't need to go that low. That could be an interesting tournament play for the showdown. But I would definitely keep him in your tournament pool.
All right, yeah, I won't blame you for that. You're right. If he could get high, I don't. Yeah, probably not gonna. I don't think I'll land on him too much for the 2 game. But for tournaments, like you said, definitely keep him in the pool. If that kid gets hot, we know he can knock down a shot, and he will stay on the floor if he's that hot. It's just he's a difference maker in that kind of way. Shifting over to Boston, we touched on Kemba. I think you gave some fair amount. I think we got your showdown take on him already. You're going to pretty much probably play him, from what I'm getting, a little bit more than Dragic. Probably still have shares of Dragic here and there, though. They make great pivots to each other. Yep. I'll probably stay away from him. Sliding over to, you know, Jaylen Brown over there at 7,700. You already touched on him a little bit too. He's a guy that I have some interest in. I won't go crazy on him, you know, just looking at it, and I prefer Tatum over him. Marcus Smart to go down, 6,900 for Marcus Smart on the 2 game slate. You know, those 2 guys very comparable for each other. I don't think I'll be overweight on either one of these guys though, man. I mean, I don't mind Marcus Smart. We're starting to creep up to that price tag range where, you know, you really need him to get, you know, 6 or 7 assists, and you know, when the 3-ball is falling for him, he's not shy. We saw him just chucking in that last one. And over the past 3 games, he's taken double-digit shot attempts from the 3-point land. So, and knocking him down at a pretty decent clip. Struggled in that Game 7 versus Toronto a little bit. But the other games, he's been rock solid. So, you know, for that reason, I keep him in my pool, but I just don't see myself landing on him too much. So, Jaylen Brown, I'll probably have a little bit more shares of than Marcus Smart. But why don't you give me your feel on these guys?
Yeah, I think this is kind of why I said this is a good slate to spread around your ownership. So if you're playing, you know, 5 to 10 lineups, something like that, you know, I wouldn't be too overly exposed to kind of any of these Celtic guys or kind of anyone in this game, honestly. I just, you know, we can easily see tomorrow that, you know, Marcus Smart scores 60 or Jaylen Brown scores 60, or, you know, it's the Tatum game or it's a Kemba game. You can kind of make that argument for any of these guys. And I think that's kind of the way to play it. It's just get some exposure, get some teams with all these guys. For cash, I would probably on the 2 game, Jaylen Brown's skill set is a little more stable and he's a little bit cheaper. I would probably lean Jaylen Brown in cash over Marcus Smart. Kind of the same thing with the showdown slate, but in tournaments, I think I want to make sure I have some lineups with all these guys in it if I can, with different exposures.
Oh, right. I don't blame you for that, man. Like you said, these guys all have some pop in them. Jaylen Brown will probably draw some Jimmy Butler. It's not the easiest defensive assignment or offensive assignment on both sides of the ball. It might wear him down a little bit. Marcus Smart's actually struggled against Miami this season, though. And, get it out. There's nothing like the podcasting. Got to have a fresh glass of water or something next to it. And there's nothing like taking a nice sip of it to clear your throat and then choking on it. Right. It's even better. Luckily we're doing the show together. I do a couple solo shows, and choking by yourself on a solo show, man, is not the best. You're just
feeling,
hoping, you're hoping someone can bail you out, and you got no one there. But so that's kind of my mentality with this. It's Marcus Smart price tag is getting to a point where I don't like it that much. Jaylen Brown, it's a tough defensive assignment. So like I said, I will have a couple shares of these guys, but
Right.
I'm looking more towards Jason Tatum as my top option on Boston, and I don't think anybody's going to be surprised by it. I mean, the dude's priced up there at 9,800. I'm just hoping that with some other high-priced guys now on this slate that people are a little bit deterred from him. But this kid's a superstar, and it should not be surprising anyone. And then the rebounds, just over the past, what is it now, 5-6 games? This dude's just doubling, getting us the bonus. 3 straight games with at least 60 DK points. Sign me up at 9,800. He's one of my favorite plays on this slate. Let me get your thoughts on him, though.
On the 2 game, I think Tatum is pretty easily the best tournament spend. Everyone's going to want to play the 3 guys on the Friday slate. LeBron, Jokic, and Davis. Of the expensive guys, I think you're going to get the lowest ownership from Tatum, and he has the same upside as those guys. Just the way he plays now, he doesn't come off the floor. He's the highest usage guy on the team. He has a huge blocks. He had 5 blocks and steals in the last game, as you said. The rebounding. The rebounding floor has been immense. I think that's a great call. I would definitely prioritize him for the 2 game in tournaments. And on the Showdown, I'm not looking as much in captain because he's a little expensive and he limits kind of just the mid-tier guys I want to play. But I think he's squarely in there for just about any build. And then if you want to get a little more unique, you can put him in the captain. But yeah, I think he's a tremendous play on both slates.
Awesome, man. And then I guess the last people to talk about in Boston, then we can speed through that Denver-LA game. And I say speed through just because we know counterparts being, I think tomorrow it will be me and Brenton.
Hey, you got it.
I got it. Look at that. I did it. So we'll be touching on we'll be touching on that game again. So just for the sake of not saying the same thing, and I'll listeners, if you guys want to let us know if you guys like the way that we're doing this, because there's going to be this kind of these slates going on for the next few days, at least until these series are done. So let us know. Do you guys like us just breaking in some Showdown slate talk along with the 2 game slate? Do you prefer us maybe just to do the Showdown every single night? Let us know, because we're just trying to gauge us towards everybody else. Let you guys, build your best lineups off of just getting some information early from us. That's exactly what it is. It's an early look. It just ends up being a super early look when we're talking about the game 2 days from now. Right. But Daniel Tice, last guy I guess we could really mention, 5,300, played big minutes in that last one. In the overtime game, played 35 minutes. Not a great matchup, not a great point per minute guy, not a guy that I generally play very often, but I'll just grab your take real quick before we leave. On to the next game. Yeah,
you kind of said it all. He doesn't really have a ceiling. It's an incredibly tough matchup against Bam. They kind of have to play him though. I think he's kind of their only. Bob Williams did okay, but Tice is kind of their best option to put on Bam. So he can, he'll be out there, 30, 33, 35 plus minutes. But I mean, you're kind of just looking for a cash floor for 25 to 27 DK points, and maybe you're hoping he falls into some blocks and steals to get an upside. But he's not going to be shooting. He's the 5th option with virtually any lineup combination. So he's there. If you need him, I would prefer to look elsewhere.
All right, brother. Let's slide over to the next game real fast. Denver versus the Lakers. The Battle of LA. Is no longer there. So now it's just the Lakers got to hold it down for the 4. I know Santino is pretty stoked about this. I know he'd much rather be facing Denver. I don't know, though. Denver is hot, man. You can't take away momentum and what these guys are coming in with. But this game's coming in as a 212 over-under, -7 for the Lakers, 7 being favored for the Lakers. But we'll start with this Denver team real quick. I'll run through the guys that I'm initially looking at right now early. Then I'll just pass it over to you and get your thoughts on a few Denver guys, and then we'll swap over to the Lakers. But Jokic coming in at 10-5. I don't think I will be interested in Jokic in the first game of this series. Price tag's getting up there. I know he's coming off some pretty phenomenal games. It's a totally different matchup, though. I talked about it before. Clippers are viable against other centers. while LA is the complete opposite. Lakers playing probably the best defense since the bubble started and some of the best defense all year. And just the amount of bodies that they have to throw at Jokic between JaVale McGee, Dwight Howard, Anthony Davis. They can, Jokic is going to get his. He's going to get his points. Don't worry about that. But, it's definitely going to make it a little bit more difficult. Jamal Murray at 9K, that's just a super elevated price tag. I don't see myself landing on him either. If I had to pick between him and Jokic, I'd probably play Murray, but just understand that the floor is much, much lower. Probably better off suited for tournaments. If I'm looking at anybody on this Denver team, I'll be looking at some of these ancillary pieces between, as Santino would say, and now he's going to forever get roasted, the Jerami Grant call. Yeah. So I do have some interest in Jerami Grant. That is Jeremy Grant, but shout out to Santino, the name butcher. Just how versatile he is. He's been their key defender. The floor, it's low. The ceiling, not that high, but it's stable. And he does have his up and down games where if he can get you some blocks and steals. So at 4,500, I don't mind playing him. And we could see some Paul Millsap in this series. I think I have a little interest in Paul Millsap. It's been burning me like crazy. But at 4,400, I'm looking at some of these ancillary guys. Like I said, I know I'm going to have some ownership in that first game. I know I'm going to have some ownership over there on the other side in LA. So when push comes to shove, I gotta make some decisions here. And I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see some Mason Plumlee start to get some more action. Playing very limited minutes in that Clippers series, mostly because the Clippers don't play big. It is the opposite scenario, like I just said. So he's a pretty decent option, I think, at 3K minimum salary. We're talking about this 2-game slate, and a guy that if he's playing 18, 19 minutes, can easily get you that sort of value and that return. So that's kind of what I'm doing here. I'm looking at some of these value plays. What about you? Anybody that pops off the page immediately for Denver?
Yeah, I think for cash games, all these ancillary guys are really, really good. Gary Harris I think he's locked now into this 35-minute role. He's really dependent on him shooting well and getting that 3-ball to drop and hopefully getting some blocks and steals. But I think he's one of the better options to kind of grind his way to value. And 4,800, it's a reasonable price tag. Jeremy Grant is probably going to be the primary LeBron defender, so there's definitely some inherent risk there. But he's by far their best option to defend him. It's just too cheap, 4,500. I don't know. He's shown basically no ceiling throughout the Clippers series. But we know he's going to be out there as long as he can. They just really need his defense, and I think they'll probably need it even more in this series. I don't see anyone. Maybe they'll try throwing a little bit of Paul Millsap on him. I don't really want it. I don't think they'll try to get Michael Porter Jr. matched up on LeBron. So you're getting a pretty safe. Yeah, I think you're getting a pretty safe minutes floor there, as kind of you've seen the whole playoffs with Jeremy Grant. I really like the Paul Millsap call. I think historically he's defended Davis really well. His archetype as a defender is basically as good as you can hope for to possibly slow down Davis. There's definitely foul trouble risk there. But Paul Millsap, he's a guy. I think his minutes have been so inconsistent. I think you're going to see a lot more consistency with how big the Lakers are likely going to play. If he's getting 25 to 28 minutes at this, at 4,400, I think he's definitely got to be in there for cash games. Outside of those three guys, I'm not too interested in Porter Jr. I think I kind of want to see how they want to use him. Maybe in tournaments you can take a shot over Grant and Millsap in cash games. But if he's higher owned, I don't know. I don't really have a good read of how they want to use him in this series. And then the expensive spends, I'm not touching Murray at 9K. I'd much rather just find the 800 and pay it for Tatum, if I'm spending in that price range. Mm-hmm. And then I think between Jokic, LeBron, and Davis, do you think Jokic is the lowest owned of those three?
See, I want to say yes, but I think recency bias might have people thinking otherwise. And there are some center options, but if you're not playing Bam and if you're not playing Jokic, you really eliminate a lot of the other guys. Like I said, I like Mason Plumlee. I wouldn't even mind having Mason Plumlee as my center. Even if you wanted to throw Paul Millsap in there, you can make that work. But yeah, I think a lot of people might opt to spend up. So if that's the case, I could see Davis maybe coming in a little lower than him. I could see LeBron being the highest, then maybe Jokic, and then Davis.
Yeah, that sounds correct. I like your Plumlee call. I think that's a really good tournament flyer there. I think we can expect JaVale and Dwight to kind of get back to their, roughly 30 minutes combined on the floor, which, that bodes well for getting Plumlee a little extra run. Maybe they'll do some Jokic Plumlee super big lineups in this series. So yeah, I mean I think that's pretty much it. Just kind of focus on Harris, Grant, and Millsap and Cash. Maybe Jokic if the build works. And then MPJ as a tournament pivot off those guys.
Yeah, I think MPJ comes into play if you're just kind of game scripting this to get away from Denver. I think that's where I'd look at MPJ because, if the game gets out of hand, his minutes will likely get increased. They're playing from behind. They'll let the young kid just shoot it and chuck it. And we know this kid can score, and that's about it. He's not really he is a defensive liability at this point in this stage of his career, young stage. But, yeah, if they're chasing points, they'll be looking for that extra spark. And I could definitely see MPJ getting some decent run if it gets out of hand. So, definitely that kind of game script scenario for me. Sliding over to the Lakers, I just kind of said I do prefer LeBron personally over Davis. I don't mind either one. The $800 price difference, both are very much in play. We know what these guys can do. They're pretty much smashing 50 night in and night out. So sign me up. I will probably have some decent shares of both these guys with a little edge towards LeBron. Markieff Morris is somebody I want to talk about because you just touched on something I was going to allude to, which was that, he's been getting decent run, but, if we're going to see JaVale McGee and Dwight Howard get introduced back into this lineup, the minutes have to come from somewhere. And, Markieff was somebody who in that Rockets series benefited from these guys getting benched and was able to get onto the court in some smaller ball lineups. So, 3,700 is a great price tag. I would not trust him in cash games for this reason, though. Still viable, I guess, as a GPP play. Just proceed with caution, knowing that those minutes might come from him. And I think the best value play on the slate's got to be Rajon Rondo at 4,300. The fact that this dude is not seeing, a little bit more of a price increase from those games he was having over there in Houston. We saw two or three straight games of almost 40 DK points. That last one he struggled, but even when he struggles, he's putting up 20. So sign me up. Rondo, I think, is just your free square play for this. I get it. It's not the same situation. It was a much better matchup against Houston, higher game total, all that. Don't care. That's still a great price tag. We need value. So that's the way I'm looking at this. I'll be playing the two studs. I'll be playing Rondo. And Danny Green's just that guy. If it makes it work at the end of your lineup, you never feel good about. But for some reason, we always land on Danny Green. Sure, why not?
I think probably just totally agree with everything you said. I think the thing to touch on with Rondo is, he's probably going to be the highest owned player on the 2-game slate, but don't let that deter you from putting him in your tournament lineups. There's just so many limited possible winning combinations that it's more than likely Rondo at 4,300 is going to be on it. So eating the Rondo chalk isn't necessarily a bad thing, especially kind of in these lower entry, lower sized tournaments. And he gives you the best upside. So find ways to be different around Rondo than fading Rondo on this slate.
Absolutely, broski. Well, that's all we have for you guys. That's it. Quick little breakdown. You got a little showdown action. We got a little 2-game slate. I kind of threw a curveball over there at Aaron. I guess that makes it a bad host on my part. I should have sent you some notes of what we were going to talk about.
It's all good, man.
We ripped it, though. We got through it. It was good. That's it, though. Thank you guys for listening. If you could, real fast, give us a little thumbs up, a rate and review, a 5-star. It means the world to us. We see those positive comments, and then we can also adjust the way that we do things to cater to you guys and make this the best kind of show for you. That's what we do it for. We do it for the fans, man. We do it for the fans. And then if you want to follow us on Twitter, you can find me at Mike Apatra, MikeApotra. You can find Aaron at Asmus Sports, ASMUSSPORTS. Did I get it right? Boom.
Yep.
I'm getting better. I'm getting the schedule and the Twitter names. You think after 40, 50, 60, or 500 shows I record, I would get that down a little sooner. But that's all we have for you guys. Thank you for listening. We'll be back tomorrow. It'll be me and Brett and breaking down, again, possibly the Showdown slate and the 2-game one. Let's go out there. Let's crush some GPPs.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.